CM Punk wants a huge marquee match for his AEW return. Plus, we had a shocking heel turn on Dynamite last night, and a title match has been added to AEW Double or Nothing. It's all in the wrestling news right now. Right, there's a Y in the day, so an announcement's coming from AEW. At least that's what Tony said last night, wasn't it?
Yeah, he certainly did. He said, last night Tony Khan said it's clear that AEW can produce even more content and revealed that next week AEW will make one of the most important announcements ever in the history of AEW. This man likes making announcements. I feel like it can only be one thing, Tom, at this point.
Oh, that's right. He is going to Eurovision and he will sit in the front. No, for all intents and purposes, this is the announcement of AEW Collision, the new AEW TV show. It could also be connected to a return for CM Punk. MJF name-dropped Punk on Dynamite last night, which has got people thinking that maybe we're starting to write him back into AEW history, because that's the first time his name, I think, has been uttered in a long time.
In a long, long time. I think MJF dropped little hints here and there, hasn't he? Best in the world and this, that, and the other. But yeah, full-on name-dropping him last night.
Now, Fightful Select did some deep diving on the CM Punk and AEW Collision news, didn't they?
They did. They were deep diving indeed. So yes, as you said, from Fightful Select, there are already major plans and a marquee match tentatively scheduled for the Collision show, with CM Punk pushing for a huge match early on in his return. Now, there has been a Chris Jericho program discussed, but Punk had pushed for another return opponent out of the gate.
So, one name that I've seen floated online, not from any particular sources, but just a name that's sort of done the rounds, is Samoa Joe.
Going for a fourth round.
Very possibly. I think there's quite a few potential opponents for that, like major league, the high-level opponents for CM Punk's return on Collision. Maybe Bryan Danielson.
Ooh,
there's a thought.
That's a great shout. They're good together, aren't they, as well? They've had some banger matches.
Yeah.
That'd be nice to see.
That'd be a nice one. Now, when it comes to AEW Collision, there are already several Saturday dates in Tony's diary, but we're told that when necessary, they might book the same venue for 2 nights on the bounce and tape Collision on the Thursday. Now, Fightful Select say, we haven't heard if this is anything to do with keeping Punk and the Elite apart, which is something that we've heard quite a bit of regarding plans for a brand split, which we'll touch on in just a second. But sources indicate both sets of talent would occasionally appear on Dynamite and Collision when it's called for. So, whilst it might keep certain characters away from each other, on the whole, there will be occasions where they will cross streams.
Yeah, which, I think
like
that was inevitable.
Chopsticks.
Yeah, if there's not going to be like a hard brand split, essentially, or anything like that, I think it's inevitable that they're going to sort of cross paths at some point, especially when we get to the big pay-per-view shows as well, the weekend shows. So.
Now, what did Fightful say regarding the rumours of this said brand split?
Well, they said there isn't expected to be a hard brand split associated with this show, but we are told that there are plans to have a fresh roster approach with some significant names. There are several AEW talent who have been sidelined and believe they'll appear on the show, but haven't outright been told they are.
Interesting, a fresh roster approach. Maybe, I mean, the one thought I have is like a soft brand split, whereby you have guys that kind of gravitate around one show, but if needed to go on another, then they will.
Which makes sense. Obviously, if sort of Collision is going to be CM Punk's show that he's going to be on quite frequently, it still makes sense to have other bigger names appear on Collision as well. I know, like, CM Punk's going to be a big draw for a lot of people, but it's always nice to have like a few more extra big names on there every now and then, isn't it too?
I think so. Now, what of Rampage? Poor Rampage. Suddenly it's seen Dark and Dark Elevation disappearing around it. Rampage was always a strange proposition from AEW. Started off strong with the arrival of CM Punk, and then it just became a bit of Dynamite overspill. Rampage, we Fightful were told, is going to become a show that more resembles Sunday Night Heat from the late 90s, early noughties. So it will legitimately become a sort of overspill from both shows instead. Fightful Select go on to say, when it comes to sort of what happened to the indie talent that was always showcased on Dark and Dark Elevation, which was always a great plus of Dark,
Yes.
was it would give some names a bit of a run out in an AEW ring in front of an AEW audience, and since that's not going to be there, what will happen with them? Fightful Select say that many indie talent names will be likely getting opportunities on Ring of Honor instead.
Okay.
So Ring of Honor will very much take its place as a filtering system, like a development system, a breeding ground for AEW, which I think is the right way to do it.
Yeah,
I feel
I feel like that as well. I feel like, obviously Ring of Honor had phenomenal wrestlers back in the day too, but it's a place where a lot of talent that we see now that are bigger stars cut the teeth in too. So it feels like it's kind of like still pushing that what it once was back in the day, if you know what I mean. And I like that about it too. And there's so many good talent within AEW and within Ring of Honor at the moment as well. That there's going to be it's going to be a great reason to watch Ring of Honor, I believe.
Yes, as you say, a lot of great talent, two of which made their first appearances in a long time last night.
They did. Thunder Rosa and Miro. We saw them backstage at AEW Dynamite last night. So Miro was approached for comment as to why he was there, but he ignored the question and marched straight into Tony Khan's office. And then, goodness gracious me, a little bit later on, Thunder Rosa, who was reportedly being faced with back surgery, told Renee Paquette that tonight was a good night to talk to Pappy Khan.
So the returns of Miro, Thunder Rosa, according to Fightful Select, and a few others are incoming. They are all directly tied to the debut of Collision, obviously, because now you've now got an additional show. And you've got Ring of Honor set, so your roster is starting to become a bit paced, a bit easier to navigate.
Yeah.
You've got to get Miro back on your telly.
Yeah, I think with Collision, I think it's inevitable that it's going to happen. I really like that he didn't say anything when Renee asked him what was going on. I like that he's leaning into all this. It feels like he's leaning into, a lot of our frustrations that we've had that he's not been on TV for a long time. So I enjoy that he's leaning. It felt like he was leaning into that a little bit at least. Anyway.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
We'll wait and see. We'll get the full announcement next week. So Tony said that it will be an announcement from TNT that would be followed up on Dynamite. So this time next week, we'll probably be talking about it. We'll probably know what it is, and we'll give you all the details that we know and at cultaholic.com. But meanwhile, last night on Dynamite, away from announcements and possible returns, there was a shocking turn of events in the main event.
There sure was. So during the steel cage match between Moxley and Kenny Omega, oh my goodness, we were all shocked to see that Don Callis stabbed Kenny Omega in the head with that dastardly screwdriver. It then resulted in Moxley picking up the win over Omega. So Omega had Moxley up in the one-winged angel, but then he runs over and stabs him in the head. Or did he hit it? And then he pinned him and then he stabbed him in the head. It was one of the two.
Omega hit the angel.
He did. Goes for the
on
pin.
the two, here comes Callis.
Yes,
Doink.
stabs him in the head. That was it. And then post-match, Callis goes to stab him again, but instead he grabs Omega's head, he whispers to him, kisses him on the head, chucks him back down, and then just leaves the ring.
Now this feels like this obviously is a heel turn for Don Callis, it seems, and two things come to mind. Either Don Callis now leads back the Blackpool Combat Club, or, and I had this thought in my head, because they tend to quite like stories that are a little bit more in the weeds, a little bit more convoluted. Is it a setup all along?
He kissed him.
He whispered and kissed him.
Love. I don't know.
What if it's Don Callis and Kenny Omega playing the long game against the Blackpool Combat Club, and then when they least expect it, wham! Haha! That's right. I let Don Callis stab me in the face with a screwdriver just to get back at you. It sounds rubbish because I think it is, but it's something that as I watched it, I went, they wouldn't do that.
Well, Don Callis has very much been pulling strings behind the scenes now for a little while. We've seen him tamper with stuff with Kenny Omega and Hangman Adam Page for a while. Part of me has always been thinking that Callis getting Takeshita in with the Elite there was some sort of like ruse to then have Takeshita and Callis go over with the Blackpool Combat Club and then have Hangman come back with the Elite, but then also maybe at Forbidden Door or something we see Ibushi come back too, and then you've got like the 5-on-5 thing. That might be too convoluted.
It's not for AEW. I think it's quite on the brand for AEW because they do like a rich storyline, shall we say?
It was surprising nonetheless.
It was surprising
nonetheless, and I
Don
enjoyed
Callis
it.
is a great heel.
He
so
is.
Obviously,
He's so
he
good.
should stay a heel.
Yeah, definitely.
100%. Looking to AEW Double or Nothing, you know what? In amongst everything else that is happening in the wrestling world, lest we forget, there's an AEW pay-per-view coming up in a couple of weeks.
There sure is.
And up until last night, there was only one match announced for it. Now we have two. Two. At Double or Nothing, we'll see FTR defend the tag team titles of AEW against Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal. We've seen some bit back and forth between FTR and Jeff Jarrett and his team for a while. And as a caveat added to this, Mark Briscoe is going to act as guest referee. Mark brought out tequila for both teams to celebrate the change of the match announcement. However, Sanjay Dutt spat his in Dax Harwood's eyes and blinded, as you do, Harwood accidentally pile drove Mark Briscoe.
Oh no!
The amount of times where like I've come home and I've been sort of getting the cobwebs out of the corner, and a bit of dust goes in my eye, and I accidentally pile drive Alex.
Well, you know, Pablo's spitting water in your eye.
Oh, but Pablo spits dreamers at me. One in the eye.
Exactly. These things happen. You know what I mean? I'm intrigued to see how this one goes because I thought that it would be a no-brainer that sort of the FTR retain the titles. They've not had them for long again. They've come back, not held them for long. But with Mark Briscoe in there, I'm thinking, are they gonna do something a little bit saucy? Sort of swerve this a little bit there. Who knows? But yes, there's only been 2 matches announced for Double or Nothing so far. However, there's a few build-ups to a few things that can happen on the show, which is really nice.
Yeah, and we'll get to it as weeks go by. So FTR, Jeff Jarrett, Jay Lethal, some campy goodness from Dynamite last night. They join Sammy Guevara, Jungle Boy, Darby Allin, and MJF, who are all fighting for the world title at the show as well. And so as you say, plenty of shoots.
Yes.
Plenty of plants that need watering.
They do.
In the metaphorical Dreamlight Valley. And all being well, we'll be able to sell some wheat to Goofy. I don't know. Alex has been playing it a lot.
It looks pretty good. I've heard nothing but good things.
It's good fun. Like if you like, you know, a game that says, oh no, there is evil descending on the land, we best make Moana a quiche. That's Dreamlight Valley. That's an extra. You're welcome. We'll have more wrestling news throughout the day at cultaholic.com. Gaze.
Love you, bye.